Thanks very much. Hello. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the growing pains from startup to corporate. This has happened to me in a couple of companies. It happens to everybody here. We don't like change. Salespeople don't like change, full stop. So I'm going to try and ease the pain a bit. But there's good news for me and bad news for me. The bad news is there's a high bar that I need to reach from the speakers before. The good news is that you're all in food coma, so whatever I say, it doesn't really matter. Ken, low. Okay, laat a little bit. I think we're having it's from all the experimenting. There we go. Thank you. All right, can you hear me now? Is that better? Okay, great. All right, just a little bit about me. 21 years in Israel. I'm originally from Zimbabwe, probably the first Zimbabwean you've ever met. But yeah, and I'm in sales, different thing. Been 15 years in SaaS sales. I started off my career at LivePerson, where one of my first mentors was Dave Hyman. So I learned a lot from, that was where I kind of got my education in SaaS sales. Moved on to ClickTail. I built a team of 20 to 25 salespeople, inside sales. I was number 25 in the company. Lots of challenges, but lots of opportunities when those challenges come by. After that, I moved on, co-founded my own cyber company. And then shortly after that, I went on to WalkMe, where I was a regional VP of sales dealing with EMEA. And today I'm currently a VP sales, inside sales at Incredible. Incredible is basically a tool for developers, built by developers. It helps accelerate the development cycle. So I heard earlier along that we do sales pretty much every day in life. All our life is sales, and I was thinking of a story to tell you guys, one of the most challenging sales that I've ever had. And one of the most challenging sales I've ever had was actually with my mother-in-law. Yeah, I love the lady, sweetest lady in the world, but I'm petrified of her. I wanted to move houses. We were living in Give a Time, close to mom, close to home, everything's great, see her every day, which is okay. But I wanted to move out. I wanted to move out into Rosh Hashanah. Don't ask me why, but I wanted to move to Rosh Hashanah. And I got the father-in-law's buy-in, but the mother-in-law, it was a pain, and I was like, I had to start like getting into sales mode because it just wasn't working. And the more I was telling her and the more I was arguing with her, I just realized it's not working. One day I'm sitting at work at Mazebolt, end of the quarter, lots of pressure, and I get a phone from the mother-in-law. I'm like, oh no, what have I done now? So then I answer the phone, and she's kind of crying to me. She says to me, why are you going to Rosh Hashanah? You're leaving us so far away. I was like, what are you talking far away? I came all the way from Zimbabwe. I left my family behind in Zimbabwe. It's only a half an hour drive. So she was like, no, I'm not going to be able to see my kids. I'm not going to be able to see my daughter, my grandkids, this. She was speaking to me for 45 minutes. I remember exactly every single word by word what she was saying. And then I clicked into objection handling. So I was listening to her, thinking, okay, what am I going to do? How am I going to sell this to this lady? She's just come in there full force. No, 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 no. You're not moving. You're not taking. And I was just waiting for that one pain point to come up. She was talking about the grandkids. And I realized, I got it. So she said to me, why? Why are you doing that? Why do you want to go? And after the 45 minutes, I said, Dali, it's not for me. It's really not for me. It's for the grandkids. Think about your grandkids' future. And after that, the penny dropped. So the message is that we use sales every day of our life. But that's not part of the presentation. I want to talk a little bit about the sales approaches. So there's two types of sales approaches that I see common in the Israeli industry, and I think it's common globally in SaaS practice. There's the bottom-up and the top-down. So the bottom-up approach is the SMB approach. You want to get as many customers as possible. It's kind of the shotgun approach. So you have a freemium model, or you have a free trial, and they're very quick sales. You have an inside sales team selling to them over the phone globally. And these are transaction sales. They are usually between 1 to 3 months, the sales cycle, and not such a high average order value. There's also a low cost to small business. To selling to small businesses, you don't really need to support them as much as you need to support those enterprise customers. So you have a support, which is usually online, and you don't really even have professional services with them. You might have customer success, but you don't have all the other assets. You don't have to fly out to those customers. You can sell over the phone pretty quick. People love the product, they carry on. But at some stage in the company's journey, you want to think bigger, you want to get bigger, you want to get to those enterprises. You sell one deal. Okay, we got a deal at Home Depot. Home Depot can now buy our product. We're selling, it's in our pipeline. It's a $500,000 deal. That's big. That's massive. Why do we have to sell to all these SMBs? We can just sell to one or two enterprises and we'll get our revenues much quicker. So the top-down approach is targeted approach. You segment your customer base. You look at ABM, account-based marketing. You go for the high profiles. You bring in enterprise salespeople, and you combine that with value sales. So you do on-site visits. You also do phone sales. You do the demo. You do the whole cycle. But you also have the professional services involved in this. So the professional services, which is a lot of the added value, is that you're helping drive the value after that sale with your customers. So you're committing to a certain value, but you actually want to execute that. So then you add the professional services. This brings the cost up much higher. These are non-transactional sales. These sales take anywhere between 6 to 18 months. Anybody in the enterprise knows sometimes they can go on for 2 years or even longer. But that's basically the difference between the bottom-up and the top-down. Some of the companies in Israel, and I've worked at 50% of these companies, so the other 50% I'm not sure about, but I can tell you that a lot of the companies that we see on the slide today, LivePerson is the classic example, because I believe and I think that they actually pioneered inside sales within Israel. They're one of the first companies that actually tried out inside sales, and the model worked, and a lot of companies shortly followed, like Panaya, Sisense, and everybody else. You can see these companies, the trend is usually that you have a massive customer base that you're selling to. Your product is great. Now you've got a massive customer base, so you've got thousands of these SMB customers that you're selling to. Again, at some point, LivePerson said, well, we've got larger companies. We can sell that same product for 10 times the price. Why don't we do that? So they do that. And a lot of companies here, like the LivePersons, ClickTail did the same thing. I was in the organization, built the whole inside sales out. We were doing phenomenal. And the company started changing. They said, okay, we now want to go for enterprise. So the focus becomes enterprise, marketing changes, management changes, everything changes in the organization. And it's very, very, very difficult if you're a salesperson to conceptualize the change. So that's what I want to talk a little bit about. So I see that there's 4 stages of growth in organizations. It probably goes a lot longer, but these are the first 4 stages which we generally see, and we can talk about some of the Israeli companies. Usually stage 1 is usually up to 25 employees, have revenues of up to $10 million, and the team is built of the founders and critical employees. So you might have a VP of sales in there, you might have a salesperson, you have VP R&D, the critical elements to make the company succeed. Your target audience, again, this is the SMBs, so you're targeting everybody. You want as many people as you can get, and the funding level is usually either bootstrapped, seed, or round A. Stage 2, the change starts. The company grows. You have about 100 employees, revenues about 25 million. You want to add in an extra layer of management, so you bring in those VP of sales. You might have mid-management. You have your directors in there to grow your teams. And your target audience also changes. So you want to either focus those enterprises, those mid-markets, and you want to take another sector, which is growth. So your current customers that you have, you want to get more revenue out of them. You want to milk that cow. And that's usually about round B funding. That's where the pressure comes in. And then we talk about stage 3. Stage 3, this really gets bigger now. So we're going from 100 employees up to about 250 employees. We're talking of companies up to about $50 million in revenues. At this part, you still have your VPs and your mid-management, but the teams are growing. So you may have your VPs, your directors, and then you may have another level of team leaders below that. And your target audience becomes segmented. You have SMB, you have mid-market, you have enterprise, and some people even have below enterprise or above enterprise, which is called strategic, so you've got targeted customers. Then the fourth stage, this is an amazing stage to be at. This is when the company gets to like 500 employees, and you're talking about $100 million in revenues. This is the time to introduce C-level. So the C-level comes in, you have your C-levels, your VPs, strategies change. The C-level come in there to make these changes to grow that organization to either IPO or to get acquired. The target audience, again, is segmented, but I would say it's usually focused on the enterprises. So you forget about that long tail of the SMBs, and you focus more on the enterprises, and you bring in more skill sets to focus on the enterprises. And usually here you're talking about round C or round D. Don't take me for my word, because this can be changed at any time, but that's usually about where it is. So change is hard, but resisting change is a lot harder. I started my job at Incredible at about 3 months ago. Day one, I get to the job, here's your team, go for it. First thing I do, I introduce myself to the sales team. The one mistake I made, I'm going to make changes. This is what I'm going to do. As soon as I said that, all eyes were on me. What changes are you going to make? Why? It's all working. Everything's working great. Everything is working great. The machine is working great, but it needs to be fine-tuned and oiled. And that's why the management comes in, and that's why these changes are being put in place. So one of my salespeople, he's actually the top salesperson, and I was trying to understand why, but I did understand eventually that he was the one that was distributing the leads. But he is a great salesperson, so I don't want to say that. He's a great salesperson, but he was distributing the leads. And I did mention that I want to put automation in place and that the leads will be automated via Salesforce and everything's going to be routed automatically. I've never seen so much resistance in my life. This guy wanted to kill me. He's like, why? And I looked around and everybody was like, yes, we need to change that. So we have to put all these processes in. But the fact is that salespeople are creatures of habit. When you make a change, it's problematic. I know as salespeople, we have lots of different problems, ODD, ADD, psychological problems, all the alphabet, whatever it is. We've got it. You name it, we've got it. And when you approach a sensitive topic about change, it just turns everything over. Don't even mention changing commission structure, because that's it. That's the end of the road. Change management. So this is where change management comes into place. What are all the changes and how do we make those changes? It's not easy being a sales manager. It's one of the most difficult jobs is being a sales manager. Salespeople, it's difficult. Being a sales director, very difficult. Being a VP of sales or CRO, extremely difficult, and it's one of the hardest jobs that anybody can ever have. And to introduce these changes, you have to do it in the right way. So these are some of the ways I see changes being made. Growth is the compass. That's what you want to do. You want to grow the company, you want to get more revenues in, and eventually the goal is either to IPO or to get acquired. So you have to increase revenues, and how do you do that? Again, you have to change targets, increase targets, which is the biggest, another big challenge. You need to change your target audience. Like I mentioned in my previous slide, you're now moving on to those enterprise customers, those strategic customers, which are going to be with you long term, not 1 year and not going to churn after a couple of months. You want these people to be with you for 5 years, and those are the people that are actually going to help your company grow. With that comes change in management. You need to bring in new managers, new leaders to guide this direction. And the leaders that you bring in should come with that experience. So somebody who's already done this before, grown a company from 25 to 50 million in revenues or 50 million to 100 million in revenues, those are the kind of managers that you want to actually do it. Although people say, You want to promote internally. If you can promote internally, phenomenal. That would be great. But the real experience comes from people who've done this, and they're not reinventing the wheel. They have more experience. Knowledge. You're bringing in new skill sets. Today, for example, the sales teams that I have, they're doing sales, but I think we're talking about it earlier. It's a lot of order taking. So now when I'm bringing in training, we're talking about spin sales. They're looking at me like, what's spin sales? Why do we need this? How am I going to do spin sales on a developer? Which is true, but you have to implement all these different processes and give your team the knowledge in order to do that. The other part is the processes, which I mentioned earlier. Changing processes, bringing in new processes, automation. Automation is important. Use your CRM system. Even if you hate HubSpot or if you hate Salesforce, these are your best friends. These are the tools that are actually going to help you grow. You need to put in more processes. I'm very process-driven, so that's the only way that you're going to get to your results is by implementing new processes. And by that, you enable scalability. So you're actually putting in the foundations to get to the next level. The last thing that I have to talk about, and this is kind of what this whole presentation is about. As salespeople, how do we deal with change? It's not easy. It is not easy. I think that if you have an open mindset and you let go of old habits, so if you're used to doing something in one way and it works, but somebody says to you, I want to change that, you're not changing it, you're not flipping it over, you're actually helping it and you're improving that. So you want to let go of those old habits and change them. The other thing is focus on goals. Salespeople today, I know was particularly when I was in my sales career, I was particularly focused on my product. Learning about my product, selling my product, only about my product. But the truth is, to grow as a salesperson, you need to be a sales professional and think how to do sales in general, not just sales of your product. So those books that we're talking about, that's one of the takeaways. I need to read a bit more. I think that if you have, if you learn new ways, new ideas, and you're able to focus on those goals of the company and grow yourself as a person, you'll actually help the company as well grow and get to their goals. That's the growth mindset. The growth mindset is talking about not just staying in your little bubble, but thinking outside the box. How can I do things differently? How can I improve the ways I work? Where can I get new lead sources? How can I go and do outbound? How can I qualify differently? How can I change my closing tactics? One of the things in my previous company I did was adding a mutual action plan for closing because I found that was the bottleneck. I couldn't understand why salespeople, everything goes great. They see the demo, love the product, everybody's interested, you've got the decision maker, you've got everyone on board. The biggest problem is they're not closing. But why are they not closing? Because there's no mutual action plan to close. There's no set expectations. So if you implement small things like this, they help get quick to your goals and help the company grow. So I just moved, as you heard in the beginning, to Incredible. Incredible has been around for 17 years. This is not a typical startup. So usually startups around 4 to 5 years, growing very fast paced. Everything is happening so quickly, you just don't even know that change is happening. It's happening right in front of you. Incredible has been around for 17 years, over 1,500 customers, including large enterprise customers. And it stayed around 20 to 25 employees for a long time until it was acquired by a company called Fortissimo. And since Fortissimo has acquired, there's now new goals and there's growth. So the company's now doubled. We're now 50 to 60 people. We've come in, we've put in new processes, there's new management. Now the next goal is obviously either to get acquired again or to IPO. And how do you do that? So you have to make the engine move a lot faster. So I think my main takeaway from today is these 3 parts. Let go of old habits, focus on your goal, and be part of that goal, because salespeople are a critical part to the company's success. and have a growth mindset. Thank you.